I sat in my private study at the Boston Public Library, surrounded by rare books and family ledgers, reading Victoria's latest email for the 10th time. Dear Margaret, I refuse to call you Mom. James and I have decided it's best if you don't attend William's first birthday celebration next week. Your working-class background simply doesn't fit with the image we're trying to maintain. The Rothschild name means something in Boston society, and having a librarian at our table would raise too many questions. Please respect our wishes and maintain your distance. You can send William's gift through the mail, though please, nothing homemade this time. Those hand-knitted sweaters are terribly common. Victoria Rothschild. The irony of her using my family name while excluding me from my grandson's life would have been amusing if it weren't so painful. The Rothschild fortune she so proudly wielded had been built by my grandfather's careful investments in rare books and manuscripts, a passion I'd inherited along with his business acumen. Ms. Chen. My assistant Rebecca knocked softly. The trust fund request just came through. I minimized Victoria's email and opened the new document. There it was, a $2.3 million withdrawal request for a yacht, justified as a necessary business networking tool for James's new venture capital firm. They've exceeded their quarterly allowance by 300% already, Rebecca noted, placing a cup of tea beside me. And the party planning expenses for William's birthday are extraordinary. I picked up a framed photo from my desk, James as a little boy, sitting on my lap while I read to him in this very library. Back then, he'd understood the value of books over boats, of knowledge over social status. But Victoria had changed all that. Have you seen the party plans? Rebecca asked hesitantly. They've rented the entire Boston Harbor Hotel, hired that celebrity chef from New York, for a 1-year-old who would be just as happy with a cake in the park. I sighed, remembering James's own first birthday. We'd celebrated in the library's rare book room, surrounded by the very volumes that had built our fortune. I opened my grandfather's original trust document, its pages worn with age. The conditions were clear. As trustee, I had full discretion over fund disbursements based on the beneficiary's demonstration of family values, specifically respect for education, cultural heritage, and human dignity. They've also requested access to the summer house in Martha's Vineyard, Rebecca continued. Victoria's planning a series of society events. The same house where I taught James to sail in a small second-hand boat, showing him how the old fisherman navigated by stars instead of GPS. Now Victoria wanted to fill it with Boston's elite, people who measured worth by yacht size rather than character. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Mom, please don't make this difficult. Victoria's trying to build the right connections for William's future. You understand, right? Did I understand? I understood that my Harvard-educated son, who once wrote his thesis on social inequality, was now letting his wife exclude his mother for being too common. Rebecca, I called, please pull up the library's community program records. She brought over another file. For 20 years, I'd run the library's literacy program, teaching immigrant families and underprivileged children to read. Victoria had once sneered that it was cute how I'd played librarian instead of living off my fortune. Also, Rebecca added, Mrs. Victoria called again about accessing the rare book collection for her women's club event. She still doesn't know you're the head curator. Another layer of my carefully maintained separate life. To Boston society, the library's prestigious Rothschild collection was managed by the mysterious Nesra Chen, my professional name. They never connected it to James' common mother who worked the reading room. I pulled up the trust fund's main account. The quarterly statement showed multiple withdrawals for social advancement, charity galas where Victoria prominently displayed the Rothschild name, yet never actually worked with the causes she claimed to support. Send them the standard rejection form for the yacht request, I decided. Cite the trust's education and culture priorities. Victoria won't be happy, Rebecca warned. She's already told half of Boston about their new summer plans. Then it's time she learned about real planning. I opened a new document and began typing. Dear James and Victoria. Dear James and Victoria, the Trust Committee has reviewed your recent requests and finds them inconsistent with the fund's stated purposes. However, we are pleased to offer alternative support for William's development. Full funding for any educational programs or cultural experiences. Matching donations to legitimate charitable causes you personally work with. Investment in community development projects you actively manage. Please note that all future disbursements will require demonstration of direct involvement in educational or cultural initiatives. Regards, Mr. Chen, Trustee, Rothschild Family Trust. They'll appeal to the board, Rebecca said. I am the board, I reminded her. My grandfather made sure of that after seeing how wealth destroyed his siblings' families. I looked out my study window at the library's community garden, where I taught local children about growing food and reading plant names. Yesterday, Victoria had walked past with William in his designer stroller, not even recognizing her mother-in-law in gardening clothes. What about William's birthday party? Rebecca asked. Send the usual trust fund allowance, enough for a lovely family celebration, not a social spectacle. I picked up the sweater I'd been knitting, tiny cables forming constellations like the ones James and I used to study, and send this to my grandson, with a note. What should it say? To William, some things of real value are made by hand, with love. Maybe someday your mother will understand that. Grandma Margaret. I turned back to my rare book cataloging, the work that had first drawn me to this library 30 years ago. Victoria thought I worked here out of financial necessity. She never knew that I owned most of the priceless volumes she used as a backdrop for her social media posts. One more thing, I added. Please remind Victoria that all Rothschild collection books must be handled by approved curators only. If she wants to display them at her event, she'll need permission from, what did she call me? The common librarian. Sometimes the richest legacies aren't in trust funds or social connections, but in the lessons we teach about true worth. And sometimes the most valuable education comes from learning that real class has nothing to do with excluding others. Rebecca, I called as she turned to leave. What time is story hour today? 3 o'clock. The immigrant family group. The fallout from the yak denial was swift and predictable. Victoria stormed into the library the next morning, designer heels clicking aggressively across the marble floor, making a beeline for where I sat reading to a group of children. This is unacceptable. She waved the trust fund rejection letter. Where is Hamtar Chen? I demand to speak to them immediately. I finished reading the last page of The Giving Tree before looking up. The irony of the book's message wasn't lost on me. Story time is sacred, Victoria, I said calmly, helping a small girl pack up her worn backpack. Even trust fund matters can wait until children's education finishes. What are you? Her eyes narrowed, darting between my face and a letter. You can't be. Mr. Chen, head curator of the Rothschild collection and trustee of the family fund. I confirmed, straightening my simple cardigan. Though you know me better as the common librarian who knits terrible sweaters. She sank into one of the tiny children's chairs, her perfectly curated facade cracking. But all this time, I've been exactly who I've always been, someone who believes wealth is a tool for education and growth, not social climbing. I gathered my reading glasses and stood. Shall we discuss this in my office? The one you've been trying to get an appointment with for months. She followed me in shocked silence through the library's restricted section, past priceless first editions and ancient manuscripts, to the mahogany-paneled study she dismissed as quaint during her last visit. Does James know? She whispered. My son knows I manage the family's academic interests. He doesn't know the full extent because he never asked. I settled behind my desk. He used to care more about what books could teach him than what his bank account could buy him. Victoria flinched at the implied criticism. We're trying to give William the best life possible. By teaching him to judge people by their occupation, to value social status over character. I opened her latest trust withdrawal request. To need a yacht before he can even walk. Those connections are important in our circle. Your circle, I corrected, seems to be getting smaller and smaller. How many real friends do you have, Victoria? Not social allies or business connections, actual friends. She stared at her perfectly manicured hands, silent. When was the last time you did something that actually helped others? I continued pulling up the Trust's original mission statement. My grandfather built this fortune by believing knowledge should be accessible to everyone. That's why he created this library, funded education programs, and established literacy initiatives. Is that why you work here? She asked quietly, when you could just live off the trust. I work here because books changed my life. Because helping a child learn to read is worth more than any yacht. I handed her a folder. These are the real numbers behind your social events. How much goes to actual causes versus appearances? She paged through the documents, her face falling. I didn't realize. No, you didn't. Just like you didn't realize that the common librarian you banned from her grandson's party is the same person who has to approve your trust fund withdrawals. A small commotion outside interrupted us. Through my office window, we could see James arriving with William for their weekly library visit, a tradition he maintained despite Victoria's disapproval. They come every Wednesday, I said softly. James reads to him from the same books that taught him to love learning. Though lately he's been trying to interest William in stories about yachts and social status. Victoria watched as James settled into a reading nook with William, surrounded by children from the community program. Our grandson was happily sharing his board book with a little girl in worn clothes. He doesn't care what they're wearing, I observed. Children never do until we teach them to judge. Victoria's voice cracked. I've made a terrible mistake, haven't I? Several. I agreed, but mistakes can be educational if we let them be. The party can be held here, in the children's reading room, I suggested. With both his grandmother and his community present, the trust will fully fund it, as an educational and cultural event. You'd still let us celebrate here, after how I treated you. That's what family does, I said simply. We teach each other, forgive each other, and help each other grow. Through the window, William's delighted laugh echoed as James did funny voices for each character. For a moment, Victoria's carefully maintained facade crumbled completely. I don't know how to be part of a family like that, she admitted. My world has always been about appearances. Then maybe it's time to read a different story. I pulled out my grandfather's journal. Start with this. Learn why he built this legacy, what he wanted it to mean. She took the worn book carefully, like finally recognizing something precious. And Victoria? I added as she turned to leave. Those hand-knitted sweaters. Each constellation pattern represents a story about navigation, survival, finding your way home. I'd be happy to teach you their meaning sometime. She nodded, tears threatening her perfect makeup. I'd have liked that. William's first birthday party at the library was nothing like Victoria's original plans and everything a celebration should be. Instead of Boston's elite, the reading room was filled with children from our literacy programs, their parents, and the entire library staff. The cake, homemade by one of our immigrant program mothers, featured tiny edible books. Victoria, wearing a simple dress and one of my common hand-knitted shawls, was surprisingly at ease. She sat on the floor with William, helping him share his new books with the other children, her designer shoes discarded under a reading table. Mom, James approached, watching his wife teach a little girl the constellation pattern on her shawl. I've never seen her like this. Sometimes we need to lose our way to find what really matters, I said, adjusting the birthday crown made by our children's craft group. Your father used to say that true wealth is counted in moments, not money. The party featured storytelling sessions in multiple languages, puppet shows performed by our teen reading group, and a treasure hunt through carefully selected sections of the rare book collection. Victoria had helped plan it all, spending hours learning about our community programs. Margaret, she called, waving me over to where she sat with William. Could you tell them the navigation story? The one about the stars on their sweaters. I settled into my familiar reading chair, gathering children around me. Even the adults stopped to listen as I shared my grandfather's tale of how books and stars had guided him from poverty to purpose. That's why we put the North Star on William's birthday sweater, I explained, pointing to the pattern, to remind him that true wealth lies in helping others find their way. Victoria wiped away tears, no longer concerned about her makeup. I used to think libraries were just buildings full of old books. But they're really full of stories that change lives, aren't they? Just like trust funds are meant to be, James added quietly, understanding at last. Later, as the party wound down, Victoria approached my office clutching my grandfather's journal. I've been reading this every night, she admitted. The part about how he funded the first mobile library for immigrant communities. We made you restart that program. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a proposal. The trust committee, meaning me, would certainly support such an initiative, especially if you'd like to manage it personally. Really? Her eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm rather than social ambition. I think I'd like to get my library science degree first. Learn to do it properly. The trust does prioritize education. I smiled. And the library could use another children's reading coordinator. What about our social circle? James asked, bouncing William on his hip. They can either support our community work or find another family name to drop, Victoria said firmly. I'd rather William grow up with real friends than influential connections. As if to emphasize her point, William reached out for Maria, one of our immigrant program mothers who had taught Victoria to bake the birthday cake. Victoria handed him over without hesitation, watching warmly as Maria sang him a lullaby in her native language. We should start a multilingual story hour, Victoria mused, with all our program parents teaching their traditional tales. I sat back, watching my daughter-in-law transform from social climber to community builder. She was already making notes, her designer planner now filled with library program ideas instead of society events. Oh, she paused, looking up. We'll need to cancel the yacht purchase. I'd rather use the funds to expand the children's section and mobile library program. If that's okay with the trust committee. I think the committee would find that an excellent reallocation of resources, I smiled. Though we might need to discuss this over tea and sweater knitting lessons. The next trust fund statement showed a very different kind of spending. Education programs, community initiatives, and a growing collection of children's books in multiple languages. Victoria's social media, once full of luxury lifestyle posts, now showcase story times and literacy achievements. And every Wednesday, 3 generations of our family still gather in the reading nook, wearing hand-knitted sweaters with constellation patterns, sharing stories about what really makes a legacy worth passing on. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't the one kept in trust funds, but the one written in stories, knitted in sweaters, and built in communities. And sometimes the most precious family traditions are the ones that remind us what class really means. The Italian marble felt cool beneath my heels as I walked through the service corridor of the Grand Milano Resort. Around me, actual cleaning staff bustled with vacuum cleaners and fresh linens, none realizing that the woman in the simple navy dress was signing their paychecks. First day, a kind-faced housekeeper asked, noticing my hesitation at the corridor junction. Something like that. I adjusted my understated pearl necklace, the same one I'd worn while signing the acquisition papers for this resort chain last month. The wedding party's brutal, she whispered. Especially that blonde woman in charge. Already made 2 girls cry this morning. Ah yes, Vivian, my ex-husband's trophy wife, who'd taken such pleasure in directing me to the service entrance when I arrived. We can't have the help mixing with guests, she'd said, her designer heels clicking against marble that I technically owned. The irony would have been delicious if it weren't my daughter's wedding day. I found the bridal suite by following the sound of raised voices. Through the cracked door, I saw my daughter Emma, radiant in her wedding gown, while Vivian fussed with the veil. I still think we should have gotten the Vera wine, Vivian was saying. This off-the-rack thing your mother picked is so budget. It's perfect, Vivian. Emma's voice was tight. Mom has great taste. Great taste doesn't make up for an empty bank account, sweetie. Thank goodness your father and I could step in to give you a proper wedding. Can you imagine if we'd let her plan it? It would probably be in some community center. I chose that moment to step inside. The dress looks beautiful, honey. Mom. Emma rushed to hug me, careful of her makeup. You're early. Actually, Vivian cut in. She's right on time for the pre-wedding cleaning inspection. Though you really should be in uniform. I met my daughter's eyes, seeing the silent apology there. She'd fought to have me seated at the family table, but Vivian had insisted it would confuse the other guests. Mrs. Thompson, a harried wedding planner, burst in. There's a problem with the payment for the venue. Vivian's perfectly Botox forehead attempted to wrinkle. Impossible. Richard handled it personally. Ah yes, Richard. My ex-husband who'd walked out 15 years ago, claiming my business ambitions were embarrassing. The same Richard would marry his much younger secretary 6 months later, leaving me to raise Emma alone while building my company from scratch. The payment was declined, the planner insisted. All 5 cards. This is ridiculous, Vivian snapped. Do you know who my husband is? He's Richard Thompson, CEO of Thompson Industries. The company that, unbeknownst to them, I've been quietly buying shares in for the past decade. By Monday, their board would announce my controlling interests. But that could wait. Mom, Emma whispered. Please don't let this ruin everything. I touched her cheek gently. Nothing will ruin your day, sweetheart. Pulling out my phone, I made a quick call. Sandra, Yes, there seems to be some confusion about the Thompson wedding payment. Please clear that up. I paused. And send up a bottle of the 1982 Krug. The bride needs it. The wedding planner's eyes widened as she took a call. Yes, yes. I understand. My deepest apologies for the confusion. Vivian's smugness returned. There you see. Richard fixed it. Actually, the planner looked confused. It was cleared by the owner's office. The owner? Vivian laughed. Richard knows him from the golf club. I bit back a smile, remembering the exclusive club Richard had once blocked me from joining. The same one I now owned, along with half the properties in their portfolio. Mom, Emma touched my arm. You didn't have to. Consider it part of your wedding gift, I said softly. Though perhaps we should discuss the rest after the ceremony. Vivian was still talking. Really, if you're done with the inspection, you should go. We can't have the help hanging around during photos. A knock at the door interrupted her as a waiter entered with the champagne I'd ordered. From the owner's private collection, he announced, then spotted me. Oh, madam, I didn't realize you were here personally. Madam? Vivian's voice rose an octave. Just opening it will be fine, Thomas, I said smoothly. And please ensure the 82 Krug is served at the family table tonight. All the tables. The 82 Krug? Vivian sputtered. That's $14,000 a bottle. Is it? I feigned surprise. Well, it is a special occasion. The door burst open again, this time revealing Richard himself, his face flushed with anger. Vivian, why are the cards declining? And why is there a rumor that Thompson Industries is being bought out? He stopped short when he saw me. 15 years had added gray to his temples and padding to his waist, but the look of superiority was exactly as I remembered it. What is she doing here? He demanded. Vivian, I thought we agreed about the seating. Oh yes, I smiled. Please don't let me interrupt your plans. I'm just here to make sure everything's perfect for our daughter's wedding. The venue, the service, the staff, everything should be absolutely flawless. Richard's eyes narrowed. What are you playing at, Sophia? Before I could answer, Emma stepped between us, radiant in her budget gown that had actually been handmade by Milan's finest atelier. Dad, Mom, please. Can we just have one day without drama? Of course, sweetheart. I touched her arm. I should go check on some details anyway. The owner likes to ensure everything is perfect. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the wedding planner whispering something to Vivian. The color drained from her fake-tanned face as her eyes darted between me and the door. The ceremony would start in an hour. By then, Richard would probably have figured out why his cards were declining. And by tomorrow, they'd all understand exactly who they'd been treating like the help. But for now, I had a wedding to attend. After all, I didn't build a billion-dollar empire by revealing my cards too soon. The wedding ceremony was picturesque, exactly as Emma had dreamed. I watched from my assigned corner as my daughter exchanged vows with James, a kind-hearted surgeon who, thankfully, took after his mother rather than his status-obsessed father. Throughout the ceremony, I caught Richard checking his phone repeatedly, his face growing increasingly pale. No doubt he was seeing the news alerts about mysterious stock purchases in Thompson Industries. The business papers would be speculating wildly about the identity of the buyer who'd been gradually acquiring shares through various shell companies. The photographer wants family photos, Vivian announced as guests moved toward the reception. She smiled sweetly. Perhaps you could help direct people to the ballroom while we take them. Emma started to protest, but I caught her eye and shook my head slightly. Let them play their game a little longer. I positioned myself near the grand staircase, watching the photographer arrange Richard's side of the family in their designer outfits. Vivian had coordinated their wardrobes in cream and gold, making sure they looked every bit the wealthy family they pretended to be. Sophia? A familiar voice made me turn. Sophia Martinez. Marcus Chen, one of the country's top investment bankers, was approaching with his wife. I'd sat next to him at last month's CEO summit, though of course Richard's family wouldn't know that. Marcus, Diana, wonderful to see you. We missed you at the board meeting yesterday, Diana said, air-kissing my cheeks. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vivian freeze mid-pose, her photographer-ready smile slipping. Mom. Emma called out, please come join the photos. Oh no, Vivian interjected quickly. We wouldn't want to confuse people about the family structure. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Confused people? About the owner of the... Marcus, I cut in smoothly. How about a drink? I believe they're serving that rare whiskey you enjoyed at my Tokyo hotel opening. Now Richard was staring, his face shifting from pale to slightly green. The Tokyo Palace Hotel acquisition had made headlines last year when an anonymous buyer outbid Thompson Industries. Daddy. Emma's voice carried across the marble foyer. Why is your assistant saying all the corporate cards are suspended? Just a technical glitch, Richard muttered, loosening his collar. I'll have it sorted by Monday. Monday might be too late, I mused, loud enough for them to hear. I hear there's a major shareholder announcement scheduled for first thing tomorrow. The photographer was getting frustrated. Sir, should we continue with the family photos? Actually, Marcus spoke up, I believe the mother of the bride should be in these. Considering she owns this resort, I finished quietly, among other things. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the string quartet stopped playing. Vivian recovered first. That's impossible. Richard would know if. If what, Vivian? If the woman you've been treating like the help spent the last 15 years building an empire. If the embarrassing ex-wife with foolish business dreams now owns not just this resort, but the entire chain? Or perhaps you're more interested in who's been buying up Thompson Industries shares? Richard's knees actually buckled. A waiter, who clearly knew exactly who I was, smoothly appeared with a chair. That's why the cards, he stammered, are declining? I smiled. Consider it a preview of Monday's board meeting. Though I did ensure Emma's wedding expenses were covered, I'm not completely heartless. Mom, Emma's voice was small. Is this true? I crossed to my daughter, straightening her veil. I'm sorry for the drama, sweetheart. I plan to tell you after the honeymoon. Though in my defense, they did sort of force my hand with the seating arrangements. The seating. Vivian's eyes darted to the kitchen where she'd insisted I be placed. Oh God. Don't worry, I assured her. The staff entrance is actually quite lovely. I had it renovated last month, along with adding better break rooms and raising the minimum wage. Marcus was trying not to laugh. Sophia, you always did have a flair for the dramatic reveal. You knew. Richard rounded on him. You knew she was one of the most successful CEOs in the country. Marcus shrugged. Everyone in the actual business world knows who Sophia Martinez is, though she does prefer to avoid society pages and charity galas. Too busy building her empire, I expect. The photographer cleared his throat. Should I continue with the photos? Actually, Emma said firmly, I'd like a new arrangement. Mom, front and center. And Vivian? Maybe you could help direct guests to the reception, since you're so good at giving directions. James, my new son-in-law, unsuccessfully tried to hide his grin. He'd known about my success for months, having accidentally run into me at a hospital board meeting where I was the major donor. Mrs. Martinez, the resort manager, appeared, looking nervous. The reception room is ready, and the chef wanted to confirm. Are we still serving the special menu you selected? Special menu? Vivian's voice was faint. Mom insisted on flying in her friend for the catering, Emma explained innocently. Some 3-star Michelin chef she knows from Paris. Richard looked like he might faint. 3-star. Don't worry, I patted his arm as I passed. I'm sure you can expense the helicopter you arrived into your corporate account. Oh wait, I pretended to remember something. Perhaps not. But I hear the local taxi service is quite reliable. As guests began moving toward the reception, I heard Vivian hiss at Richard. You said she was a nobody. You said she'd never amount to anything. That was the problem with Richard, I said, loud enough for them to hear. He never could spot a good investment. Now, shall we celebrate my daughter's wedding? I believe they're serving some rather expensive champagne. The 82 Krug, if I remember correctly. The look on their faces was worth every penny of the $14,000 per bottle price tag. But the real satisfaction would come tomorrow, when Richard discovered exactly who would be running his precious company. The reception was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the embarrassed faces of Richard's family. They clustered in a corner, watching nervously as I moved through the crowd, accepting quiet congratulations from CEOs and business leaders who had flown in especially for Emma's wedding. Did you see their faces when the Prime Minister's video message played? James whispered to Emma at the head table. I thought Vivian was going to faint. My daughter, radiant in her budget gown, squeezed his hand. I can't believe you kept Mom's secret all this time. Your mother, Richard's voice cut in as he approached our table, has been playing quite the game. No, Richard, I corrected mildly. I've been building quite the empire. There's a difference. He slumped into an empty chair, looking defeated. Why didn't you tell me all these years? Tell you? I raised an eyebrow. Like when you told me my business plan was embarrassing? Or when you canceled our joint bank account because you didn't trust me with money? Or perhaps when you told the country club committee I wasn't sophisticated enough for membership? From across the room, I saw the club's chairman wince. He personally apologized last month when I acquired the property. I was wrong, Richard admitted quietly. Yes, you were. But that's not why I kept my success quiet. I wanted Emma to grow up understanding the value of hard work, not just inherited privilege. Something your new family never quite grasped. Speaking of which, Vivian was attempting to salvage her dignity by bragging about their summer home to some guests. The same home that, as of next week, would be listed as collateral against Thompson Industries' mounting debts. The board meeting tomorrow. Richard started. We'll proceed as planned. But don't worry, I'm not completely heartless. You'll be offered a position in the reorganized company, a minor one, under supervision, but it should cover the mortgage on your significantly downsized lifestyle. Emma touched my arm. Mom, maybe we should. You're right, sweetheart. This is your wedding day. I stood tapping my glass for attention. I'd like to make a toast. The room quieted. Vivian tried to shrink behind a pillar. To Emma and James. May your marriage be built on love, respect, and the understanding that true worth isn't measured by bank accounts or social status. And may you always remember that success means nothing if you lose your humanity along the way. I pause, looking directly at Richard's family. And to those who judge others based on appearances, remember that the person you dismiss today might own your company tomorrow. Champagne glasses clinked as Emma hugged me tight. I love you, Mom, and I'm so proud to be your daughter. Even when they thought I was the help. Especially then. You showed more class serving drinks than they did drinking them. As the evening wound down, I watched Vivian and Richard make a quiet exit, their designer outfits somehow looking cheaper than the uniforms of the staff they had looked down on hours earlier. The kind waiter from earlier approached. Mrs. Martinez? We found Mrs. Thompson's credit card. She tried to charge her car service to the room. I smiled. Add it to their bill. Consider it a lesson in humility. And the staff bonus you mentioned. Triple it. Dealing with the Thompsons all these years deserves hazard pay. Later, as Emma and James departed for their honeymoon, on my private jet, another detail that had made Richard's eye twitch, my daughter hugged me one last time. Mom, that comment about the person you dismissed today owning your company tomorrow? Yes. That was the lesson all along, wasn't it? Not just about revenge, but about treating everyone with respect because you never know their full story. I kissed her cheek. That and always read the fine print before signing over your company shares. Your father might want to remember that for tomorrow's meeting. As I watched their car disappear into the night, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding so spectacularly that your enemies become footnotes in your empire's history. And Richard? He was about to become a very small footnote indeed. After all, I didn't build a billion-dollar empire by thinking small. The wedding invitation arrived in a golden boss envelope addressed to Mrs. Sarah Mitchell and guest. I hadn't used my married name in the 2 years since the divorce. But apparently, my ex-husband's new bride insisted on reminding me of what I'd lost. I set the invitation beside my laptop, where quarterly reports from Jensen Technologies filled my screen. As the youngest board member of one of Silicon Valley's largest companies, I had more pressing matters than Dave's wedding to his former assistant. Ms. Bennett, my assistant Claire buzzed through. The Jensen board meeting is in 10 minutes. Thank you. I closed the invitation and straightened my blazer. And Claire? Please RSVP to the wedding. Just me, no guest. The video conference connected, revealing familiar faces, mostly men over 60. Along with Charles Jensen himself, looking worried as usual. His company had been struggling since his wife's death, though few knew how close they were to a hostile takeover. Sarah, Charles nodded when he saw me. How's that little online business of yours? I smiled, thinking of my cute hobby, a digital marketplace that quietly processed more transactions than Amazon in 3 growing markets. Oh, getting by. The meeting proceeded as usual. Budget concerns, market share debates, and Charles shooting down every suggestion for modernization. I stayed quiet, watching the power dynamics play out. My seat on this board had been Jackie Jensen's final gift to me, her protege, before cancer took her. Her husband never understood why his wife had trusted me so much. After the meeting, I returned to the wedding invitation. Lisa, the bride, had added a handwritten note. "We'd love to hear about your little shop during the toasts. Everyone enjoys a good laugh." I picked up my phone, dialing a familiar number. "Marcus, how's our position in Jensen Technologies looking?" My broker's voice was eager. "We've acquired another 2% through shell companies. Combined with your board seat and proxy votes, we're nearly ready." "Good, maintain our current strategy. And Marcus, send me everything you have on Charles Jensen's personal finances, particularly any recent loans to his daughter Lisa." The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings and strategic moves. I kept tabs on the wedding preparations through industry gossip. Lisa's father had apparently funded a $1 million celebration, despite Jensen Technologies' struggling stock price. The morning of the wedding, I chose my outfit carefully. A simple navy dress that cost more than Lisa's car, paired with my little shop's signature jewelry line. The pieces looked handcrafted, but were actually produced in factories I owned across 3 continents. The ceremony was predictably lavish. I sat quietly in the back, watching David beam at his young bride. He'd never looked at me that way, not even when I was building the business that paid for his law degree. At the reception, Lisa held court at the head table, resplendent in designer white. Her father Charles sat beside her, checking his phone repeatedly, probably watching his company's stock continue its steady decline. And now, the wedding planner announced, a special toast from the bride. Lisa stood, champagne flute in hand. When David told me his ex-wife was coming, I was surprised. "After all, it must be hard seeing what you lost." She smiled sweetly in my direction. "But Sarah's been so brave, starting her little online shop after the divorce. David told me all about it. Handmade jewelry, isn't it? So cute." Laughter rippled through the crowd. David at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I just hope," Lisa continued, "that she can find the same happiness I have. Though maybe aim a bit lower in the husband department, not everyone can land a senior partner." More laughter. I took a slow sip of champagne, worth more than Lisa's entire wedding dress. "Speaking of business," she giggled, "Daddy's letting me join the family company soon. Maybe we can give you some tips about running a real business, Sarah." Charles Jensen nearly choked on his drink. He knew the company was in no position to hire anyone, let alone his shopaholic daughter. I stood quietly, raising my own glass. "Congratulations, Lisa. I look forward to discussing business with you at the next Jensen Technologies board meeting." The room went silent. Charles Jensen's face drained of color. "Board meeting." Lisa looked confused. "Daddy, what is she talking about?" I smiled. "Oh, didn't your father mention? I've held Jackie's board seat for the past 3 years. In fact, I believe we're voting on some significant leadership changes next week." Charles stood abruptly. "Sarah, we should discuss this privately." "Why?" I kept my voice light. "I'm sure Lisa would love to hear about the company's current situation, the falling stock prices, the failed product launches, the loans you took out to pay for this lovely wedding." "That's enough," Charles snapped, but the damage was done. Murmurs spread through the crowd as guests connected the dots. Many of them were Jensen Technologies investors. "Of course," I continued, "as a board member, I should congratulate you, Lisa. That $10 million trust fund your father promised you as a wedding gift? So generous, considering the company's position." Lisa's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing panic. "Daddy?" I gathered my things, pausing beside their table. "Oh, and that tip about running a real business. My little shop processed $2 billion in sales last quarter. But you're right, it's nothing compared to a real company like Jensen Technologies." "Sarah, please." Charles grabbed my arm. "We can discuss this." I gently removed his hand. "We will. At the board meeting, where we'll also discuss those interesting loans you've been taking against company assets. I'm sure Lisa would love to attend, as long as she's not too busy running her new division." As I walked out, chaos erupted behind me. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Stocks already dropping on rumors. Ready to proceed. I typed back, begin phase 2, and send flowers to the happy couple, something suitable for a CEO's daughter. While she still is one. In my car, I pulled up the Jensen Technologies takeover documents. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the moment of revelation, but in the slow unraveling that follows. After all, I didn't build an empire by rushing things. Like a perfect wedding toast, timing is everything. The Monday after the wedding, Jensen Technologies stock plunged 15% before noon. I watched the numbers fall from my private office while social media exploded with video clips from Lisa's ill-fated wedding toast. Someone had helpfully captioned them. CEO's daughter mocks billionaire board member. Ms. Bennett, Claire appeared with my afternoon coffee. Charles Jensen is in the lobby. With his daughter. Both of them? How interesting. I checked my security feed. Lisa had traded her wedding glow for smeared mascara, while Charles looked like he hadn't slept in days. Give them 10 minutes. Let them sweat. I used the time to confirm my position. Through various shell companies and careful maneuvering, I now controlled 43% of Jensen Technologies shares. Charles owned 31%, and the remaining board members were firmly in my corner after years of his mismanagement. When they were finally shown, Lisa rushed forward. You have to fix this. The media is destroying me. Fix what? I kept scrolling through emails. Your social media embarrassment or your father's financial misconduct. Sarah, Charles stepped forward. Be reasonable. This vendetta against Liza. Vendetta. I finally looked up. Charles, if I wanted revenge, I would have exposed your creative accounting at the wedding instead of just hinting at it. He paled. Those transactions were approved. By you? Using Jackie's old passwords to authorize wire transfers to personal accounts. I pulled up documents on my screen. Did you really think she wouldn't tell me all her passwords before she died? Lisa sank into a chair. Daddy, what did you do? Nothing illegal, he insisted. Just temporary transfers to cover some investments. And Lisa's trust fund? I asked mildly. The one you promised her despite the company being nearly bankrupt. Bankrupt? Lisa's voice rose to a shriek. But my wedding, the house you bought us. I'll pay for with company money, I confirmed. Money that should have gone to developing new products or paying dividends to shareholders. Charles straightened his tie. What do you want? The same thing Jackie wanted, to save this company from your ego. I handed him a folder. Your resignation effective immediately. A full confession about the misappropriated funds. And Lisa's written agreement to decline any executive position. You can't do this. Lisa stood, designer heels wobbling. I'm a Jensen. And I'm the person who controls your father's company. I pulled up more documents. Would you like to see the real numbers, Lisa? The debt, the failed products, the millions your father spent on your lifestyle. She grabbed the papers, her makeup-streaked face crumpling as she read. These are lies. Actually, Charles said quietly, they're true, all of it. The silence that followed was deafening. You have until 5 p.m. to sign, I told them. After that, I take this to the SEC. And if we sign? Charles asked. You keep your freedom, a modest pension, and your reputation mostly intact. I smiled. Consider it Jackie's final act of mercy. Lisa threw the papers down. This is because of David, isn't it? Because he chose me over you. I laughed, genuinely amused. Lisa, David didn't choose you. He chose what he thought was a wealthy CEO's daughter. How long do you think he'll stay once the money's gone? As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Jensen Technologies CEO under investigation. Stock continues plunge. Lisa's phone lit up immediately. David calling, Nunta having seen the news. She stared at it, letting it ring. He's calling about the prenup, isn't he? I asked gently. The one that specifies his settlement is based on your net worth at the time of divorce. Tears rolled down her cheeks. How did you? Because I helped Jackie draft it years ago, when David first started showing interest in Jensen Technologies' female employees. I sat back. She knew his type. Charles put his arm around his daughter. We'll sign. Jess, give us a moment. I nodded, watching them huddle together, whispering frantically. My phone buzzed again. Marcus confirming that our takeover position was secure. At 4:59 p.m., they signed everything. As security escorted them out, Lisa turned back. Was any of it real? She asked. Your little jewelry business? Come see for yourself. I handed her a card. My company's having a job fair next month. Entry-level positions, of course. But at least they're legitimate. After they left, I called an emergency board meeting. It was time to announce the changes, starting with my appointment as CEO. My phone lit up with a text from David. We need to talk. About old times. I deleted it without responding. Some people never learn, but others, like Lisa, might surprise you. After all, Jackie had taken a chance on me once when I was just a naive intern dreaming of building something real. The board members filed in virtually, eager to hear my plans for saving their investments. I stood straight in my navy dress, the same one from the wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, let's discuss the future of Jensen Technologies and why the best revenge isn't destruction. I smiled, thinking of Lisa's card still clutched in her shaking hand. It's reconstruction. Charles' office was already being packed up. On his desk, a photo of Jackie remained, the only thing he'd asked to keep. She smiled out from the frame, probably knowing all along it would end this way. I picked up the photo, remembering her words. Success isn't about power, Sarah. It's about knowing when to use it. Looking out at the city skyline, I pulled up Lisa's resume on my phone. It was thin, mostly society functions and charity galas. But everyone deserved a chance to build something real. 6 months later, I sat in my CEO office at Jensen Technologies, reviewing quarterly reports when a familiar face appeared in my doorway. Lisa looked different, business attire instead of designer dresses, her previously perfect manicure replaced by practical lengths. Your 9 o'clock is here, she announced professionally, setting down my coffee exactly how I liked it. Who would have thought the former CEO's daughter would make such an efficient executive assistant? Thank you, Lisa. How's the night school program going? Business administration is harder than I expected, she admitted. But my professor says I have potential. I nodded, remembering her first day 3 months ago. She'd shown up in Louboutins in tears, having sold most of her designer wardrobe to pay rent after David predictably filed for divorce. But something in her had changed. Maybe it was hitting rock bottom, or maybe it was finally seeing how real business worked from the ground up. Your father called again, I mentioned casually. The retirement community in Florida seems to be treating him well. Lisa straightened some papers on my desk. He's adjusting. Teaching tennis to other retirees instead of running board meetings. It's probably better for his blood pressure. My phone buzzed. David's law firm was representing a client trying to acquire one of my smaller companies. His 15th attempt to get my attention since the divorce papers arrived at his office. Speaking of adjustments, Lisa said carefully, David asked me to pass you a message. Not interested. I closed the notification. How's the project I gave you coming along? Her eyes lit up. I've analyzed all our entry-level hiring practices like you asked. There's definitely room for improvement in recruiting diverse candidates. I have some suggestions. I gestured for her to continue, watching as she confidently walked me through her presentation. Gone was the spoiled socialite who'd mocked my little shop. In her place stood someone beginning to understand real value. Good work, I said when she finished. Draft a formal proposal. If it's solid, you can present it to the board next month. She blinked. The board? But I'm just an assistant. Jackie Jensen started as a receptionist. I reminded her. I started selling handmade jewelry online. Success isn't about where you start, it's about what you learn along the way. After she left, I pulled up the latest sales figures from my little shop, now one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the world. A notification popped up. Charles had finally sold his remaining shares, officially ending the Jensen family's connection to the company. Well, almost ending it. I opened my desk drawer, removing the photo of Jackie that Charles had left behind. She'd been right about so many things, including the fact that true power isn't in destroying people, but in transforming them. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. David's firm is suggesting a merger. Should I take the meeting? I thought about the poetic justice of acquiring the law firm where David had once lorded his senior partnership over me, but some victories aren't worth the energy. Decline, I typed back, but send them a gift basket from my little online shop. Lisa appeared again. Your next appointment is here. And thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet, I smiled. Wait until you see the workload that comes with a board presentation. After she left, I looked at Jackie's photo one last time before placing it on my desk. She taught me that success was the best revenge, but redemption could be even sweeter. I opened my laptop to prepare for the next meeting. On my screen, a news alert popped up. Jensen Technologies stocks hit all-time high under new leadership. Below was a smaller headline: Former society bride takes entry-level job. I'm finally earning my own way. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't in the boardroom, but in the small transformations that happen along the way, even if they start with a wedding toast gone wrong. The security guard at the gate radioed ahead about an urgent situation. I watched through my home office window as a red Ferrari screeched to a halt in my circular driveway, its custom paint job gleaming under the afternoon sun. Out stepped Natalia, my ex-husband's new wife, clutching a leather portfolio like a weapon. I took a slow sip of my tea, imported from a small plantation I'd acquired last spring. At 45, I'd learned that patience was the deadliest weapon in any arsenal. Mrs. Anderson, my housekeeper, Maria, burst in. That woman is demanding entry. She has papers. Let her in, I said calmly, switching off my laptop, where I'd been reviewing acquisition proposals for 3 new luxury developments. And Maria? Please record everything on your phone. Discreetly. Natalia's heels clicked aggressively across my marble foyer. Even I had to admit she was stunning, all long legs and perfect features that only youth and expensive surgeons could provide. The kind of woman my ex-husband James had traded me in for after 20 years of marriage. You need to pack your things, she announced, not bothering with pleasantries. Daddy's company has acquired this property and we're demolishing it to build something more elegant. Her red lips curved into a cruel smile. Though I suppose you wouldn't know much about elegance. I glanced down at my simple black dress, admittedly a stark contrast to her designer ensemble. Please sit. I gestured to the antique chairs I'd imported from a French chateau. Would you like some tea? I don't have time for tea parties, she sneered, throwing the portfolio onto my desk. These are eviction papers. You have 48 hours. I didn't bother opening them. How interesting. And your father's company would be Summit Luxury Properties. She preened. Daddy just acquired this whole community. He says it's been mismanaged. She wrinkled her nose at my decor, which had been featured in Architectural Digest last spring. Obviously. Summit Properties, I mused, owned by Robert Sterling. My father is a very powerful man, she gloated. This little house you've been squatting in, it's nothing compared to what we're building. I smiled, remembering Robert Sterling's desperate pitch meeting last month. He'd never met the owner of Aurora Development Group, the silent corporation that had been buying up prime real estate across the country. He'd sent endless proposals, trying to partner with or sell to us. Does your father know you're here? I asked mildly. Daddy lets me handle all sorts of business now, she boasted. And my first order of business is getting rid of my husband's sad ex-wife. James told me how you begged to keep his house in a divorce. Pathetic. I thought about James, about how he'd assumed the house was my only asset, never questioning where I disappeared to during all those charity committee meetings over the years. Men like him and Robert Sterling never looked too closely at a woman's business interests. Tell me about these renovation plans, I said, buying time as I watched Maria's phone discreetly recording from behind a vase. We're tearing down all these dated mansions, she gestured dismissively. Building modern homes for people who actually belong in luxury communities. She smirked. I told James it was embarrassing having his ex-wife living here like some charity case. My phone buzzed. A text from my CFO about Sterling's latest proposal. I held back a smile as I read it. And you're certain your father owns this property? Of course I'm certain, she snapped. The deal closed last week. Summit Properties owns everything. The houses, the golf course, the clubhouse. Now pack your bags before I call security. That would be interesting, I murmured. Considering I signed their paychecks. She blinked. What? Summit Properties did make an offer, I acknowledged. It was denied, rather firmly, as I recall. You're lying, she said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Daddy said. Your father, I interrupted quietly, has been trying to get a meeting with Aurora Development Group's owner for months. He's quite persistent. Aurora? Her perfectly lined eyes widened. But that's the actual owner of this community? Yes, I opened my laptop, turning it to show her the proposals I've been reviewing, along with about 30 others across the country. Your father's latest offer was quite ambitious, but ultimately inadequate. She snatched at the portfolio, papers spilling across my desk. This is impossible. You're just a housewife. James said. James said what he knew, which wasn't much. Men rarely look too closely at their wives' charity committee meetings or investment club luncheons. I stood smoothing my simple dress. Would you like to see the real property documents? I need to call my father. Her hands shook as she dug for her phone. Excellent idea. Though perhaps you should also mention the way you burst in here threatening the owner of his most coveted acquisition target. I'm sure he'll be thrilled. The blood drained from her face. Please, please don't tell Daddy. Now why would I do that? I picked up my teacup. When watching you try to evict me from my own house has been so entertaining. Though I should mention, the Ferrari you drove up in, it's parked in a no parking zone. I hate to have it towed. She backed away, designer heels stumbling. This isn't over. Actually, it is. But feel free to have your father call me directly. I believe he has my office number. I smiled. Oh, and Natalia, the next time you want to threaten someone with eviction, make sure you actually own the property first. Real Estate 101. I watched through the window as she sped away, already dialing frantically. Maria appeared at my elbow with a fresh cup of tea. Shall I send the recording to your lawyers, Mrs. Anderson? Please, and Maria, call the property manager. I think it's time to review all residents' lease compliance, especially the Sterlings. My phone buzzed again, Robert Sterling's number. I let it go to voicemail, imagining his panic when his daughter told him whose house she just tried to seize. But this was just the beginning. After all, I hadn't built an empire by revealing all my cards at once. I picked up my phone, dialing my lawyer. David, remember that hostile takeover strategy we discussed for Summit Properties? I think it's time to accelerate our timeline. The next morning, my security team alerted me to 3 separate calls from Robert Sterling. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the real estate conference where I was scheduled to be the surprise keynote speaker next week. The same conference where Sterling planned to announce his acquisition of my properties. Mrs. Anderson, my assistant Sarah, buzzed through. Mr. Sterling and his daughter are at the gate. He's quite insistent. I pulled up the security feed on my laptop. Robert Sterling's Bentley idled at the entrance, while Natalia slumped in the passenger seat, looking considerably less polished than yesterday. Let them through, I said, but have security escort them directly to my home office. I switched screens to a Zoom call with my board of directors. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're about to have some unexpected entertainment. Minutes later, Robert Sterling burst through my office door, his expensive suit failing to hide his panic. Natalia trailed behind, refusing to meet my eyes. Ms. Anderson, he started, then faltered as he saw the board numbers on my screen. We need to speak privately. Why? I think the board would be very interested in hearing about your daughter's attempt to seize company property. I gestured to the chairs. Please sit. This is all a misunderstanding. He tugged at his collar. Natalia was overzealous. She didn't realize that she was threatening the owner of Aurora Development Group. I finished. Interesting, since you've been pursuing a partnership with us for months. I had no idea you were. He glanced at my simple outfit and the modest office decor. The rumors said Aurora's owner was a man, I supplied. How disappointing that someone of your experience would make such an assumption. On the screen, several board members smiled knowingly. Many were women I'd met during my early days, when we were all underestimated by men like Robert Sterling. The deal? He tried again. We can still make this work. A merger between Summit and Aurora. A merger? I pulled up his company's financials on my laptop. Your company is leveraged to the point of collapse, Robert. Those acquisition announcements you've been making, all smoke and mirrors to attract investors. Natalia's head snapped up. Daddy, what is she talking about? I continued. In fact, your hostile attempt to claim ownership of my properties was likely a desperate move to secure funding before your creditors called in their loans. That's not, he sputtered, but the guilt on his face was clear. Your father, I told Natalia, has been running a shell game, announcing acquisitions before securing financing, using each announcement to attract investors for the next deal. But it's all falling apart, isn't it, Robert? He slumped in his chair. How did you? I've been watching you for months. Your aggressive expansion, the inflated purchase prices, the mysterious private funding that never quite materialized. I closed my laptop. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate before letting you anywhere near my properties? We can fix this, he pleaded. A partnership. Actually, I interrupted. I had something else in mind. I slid a document across my desk. This is an offer to buy Summit Properties. The price is fair, considering your debt load. He snatched up the paper, face reddening as he read. This is highway robbery. It's generous, given that I could wait 2 months for your company to collapse and buy it for pennies on the dollar. I smiled. Consider it a premium for solving my problem quickly. What problem? Natalia demanded. Your residence in my community, for one. The terms of the buyout include immediate vacancy of all Summit-owned properties. I met her eyes, including your father's house. She gasped. But that's our home. Like this was supposed to be my home? I asked mildly. Before you tried to evict me? Robert gripped the arms of his chair. You can't do this. I already am. I pointed to my screen. The board has approved the acquisition. Your creditors have accepted our terms. All that's left is your signature, unless you prefer bankruptcy. Daddy, Natalia's voice shook. What about my wedding next month? The press announcements. About that, I pulled up another document. Given Summit's misrepresentation of assets, we'll need to issue a correction, particularly regarding your claims about owning this community. Robert's face went ashen. The publicity will be devastating, I agreed, though perhaps not as devastating as your daughter's recorded attempts to illegally evict the actual owner. Natalia burst into tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks. This is all James's fault. He said you were just a sad divorcee living off alimony. Yes, about James. I checked my watch. He should be receiving some interesting news right about now. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. I smiled as I read it. It seems your husband just discovered his position at Sterling Investment Group is being eliminated in the restructuring. I told Natalia, a restructuring that's happening because his father-in-law's company is being acquired. You planned all this, Robert accused. You let Natalia make a fool of herself just to trap us. No, Robert, you did that yourselves. I simply gave you enough rope. I pushed a pen across the desk. Now, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? For the next hour, I watched Robert Sterling sign away his crumbling empire. Each signature seemed to age him, while Natalia alternated between tears and furious texting, presumably to James, who wasn't answering. As security prepared to escort them out, I held up a hand. One more thing. I handed Natalia a small card. The contact information for my first real estate mentor. She specializes in helping young women build legitimate careers in this industry. I met her shocked eyes. In case you decide you'd rather earn success than marry it. Why would you help me, she whispered, after what I did? Because 20 years ago, I was underestimated, just like you're being underestimated now. The difference is, I chose to prove them wrong through hard work, not marriage. She stared at the card for a long moment before slipping it into her purse. After they left, my board members applauded. Beautifully handled. Our chairwoman smiled. Though I suspect this isn't the end of the story. No, I agreed, thinking of James and the other dominoes yet to fall. This was just the beginning of their education. My phone buzzed with another text. James finally discovering his world was collapsing. I let it go to voicemail, instead pulling up the real estate conference schedule for next week. It was time to prepare my keynote speech. After all, I had quite a story to tell about the dangers of underestimating women in business. The real estate conference's main hall fell silent as I took the stage. In the front row, Robert Sterling sat ashen-faced, while James shifted uncomfortably beside him. Natalia was notably absent. Apparently, she'd flown to Europe after the tabloids caught James moving out of their mansion. Success in real estate isn't just about properties. I began scanning the crowd. It's about recognizing value others miss. Like when people mistake a simple black dress for weakness or assume a woman at a charity lunch can't possibly be building an empire. Murmurs rippled through the audience as recognition dawned. I clicked to my first slide, a photo of the eviction notice Natalia had tried to serve me. Last week, a young woman tried to evict me from my own house, I said, and scattered laughter followed. She assumed, as many do, that a divorced woman in her 40s must be living on alimony. That assumption cost her father's company everything. Robert Sterling stared at his shoes while James glared daggers at me. I continued, enjoying their discomfort. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about the costly mistakes we make when we let prejudice blind us to opportunity. I clicked to the next slide, Aurora Development Group's portfolio. While certain companies were announcing imaginary acquisitions, we were quietly building the largest luxury residential portfolio in 3 states. The numbers spoke for themselves. Gasps echoed as people realized just how much I controlled. Today, I'm announcing Aurora's expansion into commercial properties. I paused for effect, starting with the complete acquisition of Summit Properties and its subsidiaries. Robert Sterling stood abruptly, heading for the exit. James started to follow, but my next words froze him mid-step. And as part of our restructuring, we're launching a mentorship program for women in real estate development. I smiled directly at James, because talent doesn't care about gender or age, something my ex-husband never quite understood during our 20 years together. The audience erupted in applause as James finally fled the room. I wrapped up my speech with the announcement of 3 new luxury developments, then stepped into the wings where my team waited. Mrs. Anderson, my assistant, handed me a phone. Natalia Sterling is on line 1. She's calling about the mentorship program. I took the call, surprised to hear genuine humility in her voice. I've spent 2 weeks thinking about what you said, she admitted. About earning success instead of marrying it. I'd like to learn the right way this time. Be at my office Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, I told her. And Natalia, leave the Ferrari at home. You'll be starting in the leasing office, learning from the ground up. Thank you, she said softly. And I'm sorry about before. After hanging up, I checked my messages. James had finally figured out I'd owned his company apartment all along. His eviction notice had just been served. My lawyer approached with final papers from the Summit acquisition. Robert Sterling signed everything. He's taking early retirement. Make sure the settlement includes a non-compete clause, I instructed. And James? His golden parachute just turned into lead. The board approved voiding his contract due to ethical violations. I nodded, gathering my things. Outside, my driver waited with the car, not a Ferrari or Bentley, but a sensible luxury sedan. The kind that suggested success without screaming desperation. As we pulled away from the conference center, I spotted James arguing with the valet about his repossessed car. Robert Sterling stood nearby, looking lost without his company badge. Should we offer them a ride? My driver asked with a smirk. No, I settled back, checking emails about my next acquisition. I think they both need to learn the value of walking. My phone buzzed with a message from Natalia. Thank you for the second chance. I won't waste it. Perhaps that was the best revenge, not just winning, but teaching the next generation of women to succeed on their own terms. After all, success is the best response to those who underestimate you. I opened my calendar to Monday, adding a note, 7 a.m., begin Natalia's real education. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in transforming them into allies, even if you have to take everything they have first to teach them the lesson. The security footage from Logan International Airport played on my laptop for the 100th time. James, still in his wrinkled wedding suit, was rushing through Terminal C at 6:43 a.m. No luggage, just his briefcase and a phone I'd never seen before. He hadn't even changed clothes from our wedding night. I just need to handle something at the Singapore office, he'd whispered, kissing me goodbye in our honeymoon suite. 2 days, tops, keep sleeping, beautiful. That was 3 months ago. I paused the footage, zooming in on his face. No stress, no hesitation. Just my new husband of 18 hours calmly abandoning his life. Charlotte, dear. Margaret Weber's voice dripped with manufactured concern through my phone's speaker. James is just very busy with a merger. You know how these international deals are. I watched my mother-in-law's face on the video call, cataloging her tells. The slight twitch of her left eye, the way she touched her pearls. The same performances she'd been giving since her son vanished. Funny thing about international deals, Margaret, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. They usually leave a paper trail. Her perfectly maintained smile flickered. What exactly are you implying? Nothing yet. But maybe you can explain why James's company has no record of any Singapore merger. or why his work phone GPS showed him the Cayman Islands last week. The pearls again. You've been tracking him? Charlotte, that's very disturbing behavior. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. More disturbing than a man abandoning his bride, than his family lying for months. We're not lying. The gaslighting stops now. I pulled out my trump card. I found the burner phone Margaret. The color drained from her aristocratic face. What? Hidden in his study, the one he used to text someone the morning he left. It's done. I married her. Now, pay up. Care to explain that? The video call ended abruptly. I leaned back in my chair, surrounded by the evidence I gathered in our Boston penthouse. Bank statements, flight records, mysterious transfers. 3 months of digging had revealed more questions than answers. My phone buzzed, a text from Peter, James's younger brother. Meet me. Now, there's something you need to know. I hesitated. The Webbers were old money, Boston aristocracy. They'd spent 3 months orchestrating this cover-up. Why would Peter break ranks now? Where? The Gardner. 30 minutes. Come alone. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where James had proposed 6 months ago. How poetic. I grabbed my coat and the burner phone I found yesterday, hidden behind a false panel in James's desk, the discovery that had finally cracked this facade of family concern. The museum was quiet for a Thursday afternoon. Peter stood by the courtyard, looking as perfectly pressed as any Weber, but his hands shook slightly. You found the phone, he said without preamble. Did you know? I demanded. About whatever scheme required your brother to marry me and disappear. Peter glanced around, lowering his voice. It's not what you think. James, he wasn't supposed to leave. That wasn't the plan. What plan? Grandfather's will. The inheritance, it had conditions. I'd never met James's grandfather, the patriarch who built Weber Financial from nothing. He died last year, leaving everything in an elaborate trust. What conditions? Marriage by his 30th birthday, to someone from the right background. Old money, proper family, Peter trailed off. But I'm not old money, I said slowly. I'm a public defender from Dorchester. Exactly, you were never supposed to be the one. But James, he actually fell for you. Ruined everything. My head spun. Peter, start making sense. He pulled out his own phone, showing me a document. Grandfather's real will. If James married within the family, specifically our cousin Rebecca, he'd inherit everything. 50 million. The company. All of it. And if he married someone else? 10%. And control goes to our mother. The pieces started falling into place. So your mother arranged a fake marriage to me. To what? Invalidated somehow. Peter shook his head. No, she arranged the real marriage to Rebecca, 2 days after your wedding. In the Caymans. The room tilted. Bigamy. The plan was to marry you, get it annulled quickly, claim fraud or something, then do the real wedding with Rebecca. But James couldn't go through with it. No, he went through with it. He married Rebecca. But then he vanished. Neither bride knows where he is. Peter showed me another document, and yesterday he somehow transferred the entire inheritance to offshore accounts. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. So your perfect son, your family's golden boy, married 2 women in 3 days and stole $50 million. This isn't funny, Charlotte. That money, the company, everything's gone. Know what else is gone, Peter? 3 months of my life. My career, I had to take leave. My dignity. All while you people lied to my face. My phone buzzed. An email from an anonymous account, security footage from a bank in Singapore, timestamped 1 hour ago. James, looking tanned and relaxed, emptying a safety deposit box. He's burning everything down. Peter whispered, watching over my shoulder. No, I corrected him. He's exposing everything. And I think I know why. I pulled out the burner phone, showing Peter the full text thread I'd recovered. It's done. I married her. Now pay up. Good boy. The money's ready. Just one more step. No, I'm done. This ends now. Don't be stupid. Marry Rebecca. Get the inheritance. Everyone wins. Everyone except Charlotte. I won't do it. You don't have a choice. Watch me. Peter's hands shook harder. Those are from your mother. I recognized her number. She orchestrated everything. The fake marriage, the real marriage, probably even our entire relationship. I smiled grimly. But she didn't count on James growing a conscience, or on me being more than just some disposable pawn. What are you going to do? I showed him my phone screen, my email to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division still unsent. That depends. Start talking, Peter. Tell me everything, because right now, I've got evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and criminal coercion. Your whole family could go down. Peter stared at the phone, at his family's fate hanging in the balance. If I tell you everything, then maybe we can find James before he does something even more dramatic. Because right now, he's got $50 million, 2 wives, and apparently a burning desire to destroy everything the Webbers built. I touched the send button lightly. Your choice, Peter, but choose fast, because I've spent 3 months being lied to, and my patience is officially gone. Peter's confession took 2 hours and 3 cups of overpriced museum cafe coffee. By the time he finished, I had enough material to destroy the Weber family 10 times over. The arrangement with Rebecca started when they were teenagers, Peter explained. 2 of Boston's oldest families merging through marriage. It was practically medieval. But James met me instead, I said, scrolling through years of family texts and emails he forwarded to my phone. Ruined the perfect plan. Mother thought she could control it, use you to fulfill the marriage requirement technically, then dispose of the marriage quietly. Peter looked ashamed. Nobody expected James to actually fall in love. My laptop pinged, another anonymous email. This time bank statements showing systematic fraud going back decades. The Webbers hadn't just arranged marriages. They'd been running a sophisticated financial crime operation. Your mother's being arrested right now, isn't she? I asked, watching Peter check his phone for the 5th time. He nodded grimly. FBI picked her up at the country club. Maximum embarrassment, just like James would have wanted. The museum's speakers crackled with an announcement about closing time. As other visitors filed out, I noticed 2 men in suits watching our table, federal agents, probably making sure Peter didn't run. What I don't understand, I said, is why James went through with any of it. He had the evidence. He could have exposed everything months ago. Because of you. Peter pulled out one final document, a prenuptial agreement I'd never seen. If he didn't follow through, Mother threatened to destroy you. Your career, your reputation, everything. I examined the fake prenup, apparently showing I'd agreed to a multi-million-dollar payout for a short marriage. Classic gold digger setup. She was going to frame me for fraud. Among other things, she had judges in her pocket, evidence manufactured. You'd have lost your law license, maybe face charges. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Channel 5 News. Now. Peter and I watched on my phone as Margaret Weber was led out of the Brookline Country Club in handcuffs. The headline crawled across the screen. Weber Financial under federal investigation. Decades of fraud exposed. He's systematically destroying everything, Peter whispered. The company, the family's reputation, all of it. No, I corrected. He's fixing everything. Look at the timing. I showed Peter my laptop screen, dozens of transfers from Weber accounts not to offshore holdings, but to charitable foundations, women's legal defense funds, ethics watchdogs, anti-corruption organizations. He's not stealing the money. He's giving it away to causes that fight exactly what your family represents. My phone lit up again. Another anonymous email. Security footage from a private airport in Singapore, dated 1 hour ago. James boarding a plane, but not alone. Is that? Peter squinted at the screen. Rebecca, I confirmed. Looks like she helped him, probably tired of being another pawn in your mother's games. The pieces were falling into place. James hadn't just disappeared. He'd orchestrated an elaborate takedown of his own family's corruption. Every day I'd spent searching for answers, he'd been methodically dismantling the Weber empire. There's something else you should know, Peter said quietly, about your marriage. I tensed. What about it? It's the only legal one. The Cayman ceremony. James never signed the papers. He and Rebecca just made it look like he did. Mother doesn't know. A wave of emotions hit me, relief, confusion, anger, and something else I couldn't name. So I'm actually still legally Mrs. Weber, the only one. Peter smiled sadly. He protected you the only way he could, by making sure your marriage was real and valid. while everything else was smoke and mirrors. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from James's burner phone. Turn on your laptop camera. With shaking hands, I opened my video chat. And there he was, my husband, looking tired but determined, with Rebecca sitting beside him. Hi, Charlie, he said softly. I owe you one hell of an explanation. Rebecca spoke up quickly. He's not the bad guy here. We've been working together to expose everything. The fraud, the corruption, all of it. You could have told me, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. 3 months, James. If you'd known, they would have seen it in your eyes. Mother would have known you were acting. This way. He ran a hand through his hair. This way, your reactions were real. Your investigation was real. You did exactly what I knew you would. You fought for the truth. The money. I started. Is going where it should have gone years ago. To fighting corruption, supporting justice. He leaned closer to the camera. I'm sorry for what I put you through, but I couldn't let them hurt you, and I couldn't let them keep hurting others. Peter spoke up. The FBI is moving on all the evidence. It's over, James. You can come home. Not yet. James glanced at Rebecca, who nodded. We have more to expose. Other families, other arrangements. This goes beyond the Webbers. I thought about my empty bed, our unopened wedding gifts, 3 months of pain and confusion. When? Soon, he promised. And then, if you'll still have me, we can start over. Do it right this time. Rebecca stood. I should give you two a moment, and Charlotte. Thank you for being strong enough to keep fighting. We needed that. As she walked away, James and I stared at each other through the screen. 3 months of questions hung between us. The night you left, I said finally, what would you have done if I'd woken up? If I caught you leaving? I would have told you everything. Probably ruined the whole plan. He smiled sadly. That's why I had to go so early. I knew I couldn't lie to you face to face. Behind me, the federal agents were moving closer. They'd want to question me formally now. I have to go, James said, checking something off screen. But Charlie, check your email in an hour. You'll find everything you need to understand why this had to happen this way. James, I touched the screen. Just tell me one thing. Was any of it real? That's the only thing that was real. He leaned forward. I married you because I loved you. I left because I had to protect you. And I'm ending all of this because you taught me what real justice looks like. The video cut off as the agents reached our table. As they began their questions, my phone lit up one last time. A final text from James. Check your wedding bouquet. The one you dried and kept. There's a note there I left that morning. Read it when you're alone. I thought of the flowers hanging in my study, preserved as a bitter reminder, now possibly holding answers I'd spent 3 months searching for. Peter touched my arm gently. For what it's worth, I've never seen him love anyone the way he loves you. I nodded, watching the news footage of Margaret Weber's arrest replay on my phone. Sometimes love looked like leaving. Sometimes justice required sacrifice. And sometimes the biggest lies led to the most important truths. Back home, I stood in my study staring at the dried wedding bouquet. With trembling fingers, I carefully separated the preserved roses until I found it, a small envelope, hidden in the center for 3 months. My dearest Charlie, James's letter began. By the time you read this, you'll either hate me or understand why. Maybe both. I sank into my chair, reading his words through tears. Asterisk, what I'm doing will hurt you, and that kills me. But staying would hurt you more. My family's corruption runs deeper than you know. People who've exposed it have lost everything, careers, reputations, sometimes their lives. I couldn't let that happen to you. Rebecca and I have been gathering evidence since we were teenagers. We played their game, pretended to accept their plans. But we were always working to bring it down. Then I met you, and everything changed. I fell in love with someone who fought for justice every day in court. Someone who made me brave enough to finally act. The money trail leads to judges, politicians, other families. By the time you read this, we'll be dismantling it all. Every corrupt deal, every arranged marriage, every case of justice bought and sold. I married you because I love you. I left because that love means protecting you even from me. When it's over, if you can forgive me, I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. All my love, James *. My phone buzzed. The promised email had arrived. Hundreds of documents showing decades of corruption. Cases fixed, judgments bought, lives ruined. My own cases were there, ones I'd lost mysteriously, where justice should have prevailed. Another video call came through, James, alone this time. "Did you find a letter?" he asked softly. I held it up. 3 months, James, 3 months of thinking you'd use me. I know, but look at your screen now. My laptop pinged with breaking news. Arrests across Boston. Judges, lawyers, business leaders. The Weber conspiracy had tentacles everywhere. We had to get them all at once, James explained. If they'd had warning, they'd have destroyed the evidence. And me. He nodded. Rebecca's testimony is being taken now. She's turning state's evidence against her own family, too. It's really over. When are you coming home? Tomorrow. I'm on the next flight. He leaned closer to the camera. Charlie, I know I have no right to ask. Just come home. I cut him off. We'll figure out the rest. After we disconnected, I walked through our apartment, touching things he'd left behind. His coffee mug, his books, the photos from our wedding. All part of a life interrupted by necessary deception. My phone lit up with messages as the news spread, colleagues celebrating the exposure of corrupt judges, friends expressing shock about the Webers, and one message from Rebecca. He talked about you every day. Never doubted your strength. Thank you for helping us finish this, even if you didn't know you were doing it. I thought about justice, how sometimes it came through dramatic courtroom victories and sometimes through quiet acts of sacrifice. James had chosen the latter, protecting me by letting me hate him. The next morning, I stood in Logan Airport, watching his flight land. 3 months of anger and confusion had led to this moment. He emerged from the gate, looking tired but relieved. When he saw me, he stopped, uncertainty crossing his face. I held up his letter. You could have trusted me to fight beside you. I trusted you to fight for justice, he replied. You always have. I just couldn't risk them hurting you. Next time, I said, stepping closer, we fight corruption together. No more noble sacrifices. He reached for me hesitantly. Next time. I took his hand, feeling the wedding ring he still wore. Next time, because there will always be more battles for justice. But from now on, we face them as partners. Outside the airport, Boston's skyline gleamed in the morning sun. The news was still breaking, the Weber scandal growing bigger by the hour. But here in this moment, justice had already been served. James squeezed my hand. Take me home, Charlie. We have a lot of catching up to do. And we did. But first, we had a city to help rebuild, a justice system to help repair, and a love to reconstruct, stronger this time, built on truth instead of necessary lies. Sometimes the greatest acts of love look like betrayal, and sometimes justice wears a wedding ring.